Playbook, presented by FantasyAlarm.com on Bettor Sports Network.
The Playbook is live here on Bettor Sports Network. Happy Friday, everybody. My name is Justin Fetsterman, along with John and Peppa. J.I. in the holiday spirit with the Celtic warrior right there, the Celtic pride that he is here. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there. What's going on, J.I.? How you doing? This is an upgrade from Adam Ronis.
Listen, I don't know if it's an upgrade. Adam does obviously a great job on here every day with you. I tune in. I like to listen to the back and forth battles that you two just constantly have about seemingly almost every topic that you guys decide to come up on. So always fun in. But when I get a chance to pinch hit for either you or Adam, it's always fun to come on here and be part of the Playbook show.
No, absolutely. So thank you very much for filling in here. I'm actually, as you could tell, different location here. I am in Times Square right now in New York City getting ready for the NFBC draft. $5,000 to enter this draft right here, to enter this league here. A lot of money at stake, so we're going to be doing some coverage all throughout the weekend there, so it's going to be very awesome. So being in Times Square, the Road Man getting ready to call out some player names. You know, John, I actually tested out the Road Man to make sure he knows all the pronunciations, and I gave him 10 random names, players who should be drafted in this draft tonight. What do you think he got out of 10?
3.
Wow, you really don't think much of him. 7 out of 10.
There you go.
7. He thought he was going to get 9. He got 7.
I'm terrible with name pronunciation, so I wouldn't have given myself any chance. So
that's okay, though. I mean, I see he and I went over this yesterday. I mean, it doesn't really take away from us as hosts and broadcasters if we're butchering every name. There are broadcasters out there who use it as shtick and just intentionally mispronounce every name.
I just play it off as it's a shtick, but it's just me not knowing how to pronounce anything. So, yeah.
Well, we're going to have a great show today. Me and J.I. back together again. It's been a long time. Some guests that we've got coming on the show in just a little bit. Dan Servodidio from FantasyAlarm.com and PicksWise.com. He's going to stop by to go over the NCAA tournament, what's been going on here in the first round. And, John, you were actually just telling me you placed a nice little bet ski there now that Massachusetts is legalized.
Oh, yeah. In all my glory with Massachusetts legalizing mobile sports betting. They legalized sports betting itself about a month ago. You could go down to the casino if you wanted to, but just being inundated with promos here, free bets here, parlay boost, bet boost, odds boost, you name it, free bets. Today I had a free bet over on FanDuel. Xavier, big favorite going into today, down at halftime. I got them at giving 1.5 point in their matchup today at halftime. Bet that one. They end up coming all the way back, winning by 5. So we're able to cash a little bet there today over on FanDuel Sportsbook.
Excellent. Congratulations to you. Kennesaw State getting outscored in the second half, 36-24. Final score there, 72-67. Other games that are final, St. Mary's over VCU, 63-51. And that was another one, John, where I feel like a lot of people had VCU. You know the whole 12-5 narrative. It's pretty much certain that something's going to happen there. But St. Mary's comes through, winning by 12. Also, another one from yesterday, a lot of people on Oral Roberts. And Duke ends up just waxing them the entire game.
A lot of people like Oral Roberts because they had like an 8-foot center that they thought was going to be able to just like handle everything. But ultimately, well, this isn't the Duke team of yesteryear. It's still a Duke team. And they were able to handle Oral Roberts pretty easily there.
I mean, they got hot late, let me tell you. I mean, a month ago, this Duke team was not looking like they were going to do anything in the tournament. Then they win the ACC tournament, and it's just been better shooting, better offense. Duke also had some health issues at the beginning of the year with a couple of their players, Lively being one of them, and now everybody getting back into groove. They've definitely gelled over the last month or so, and all of a sudden, you don't want to face this team anymore, so we'll have to see what Duke can do.
How far did you have Arizona going, Fancy?
Oh, don't even remind me. I had them go to the Elite Eight. Stupid. Stupid.
Me too.
At first I said, you know what I said to myself, and I know that it's a different team. Them and Gonzaga, they always underachieve. I know Gonzaga went to the final a few years ago. When did they ever win? As a one seed, as anything, you remember Adam Morrison crying like a little baby about 20 years ago at this point. And man, Arizona, they have not done anything, it seems like, since Miles Simon and Mike Bibby won the 97 national championship.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since then, all they've done is underachieved, man. What about you? How far do you have them going?
Yeah, I had them going in the Elite Eight as well, so that was a tough one. I had Virginia going 2 rounds, so that was kind of an upset loss for me. But overall, if you're over on ESPN, they give you your percentage bracket standings there. I'm at 96%, so I feel like I'm doing pretty well.
Nice.
So we'll see how the rest of the odds play out as we go through round 1 here. But so far, not too bad outside of obviously the upset, but the majority had those upsets happening. So
Michigan State wins by 10 over USC 72-62. Marquette taking out Vermont 78-61. Ongoing right now in the tournament. A couple of games were at halftime. Now play has resumed in the second half. Pittsburgh up by 8 on Iowa State, and Creighton up by 2, a big favorite of Dan Servo-Didio, up by 2 against NC State, an 11-6 matchup right there. Iona up by 2 on UConn. I got UConn in the Final Four, John. This is something I don't like to see. I know it's early in the first half, and I know that comebacks happen instantly, especially in college basketball. But UConn, definitely one of the teams that I have busted through a little bit, making it to the Final Four.
Well,
Who's yours?
You got Rick Pitino there coaching Iona, right?
That's right. That's
there's
right.
the old narrative there. I think most people think UConn will come through here, but those veteran crafty coaches, they get their teams, and here you are again with a Rick Pitino team in the tournament. So there's just something about those coaches and their programs, their ability to recruit, ability to coach up, and they get them into these situations where they are in a spot where they could pull off an upset.
John, without going any further, because we're going to have our guy James Grande on to preview the DFS NBA slate a little bit later on. Britt Flynn going to stop by to talk about everything that's gone on in NFL free agency. Got a lot to talk about with Britt. And, John, because you're here, and I guess because it is St. Patrick's Day, we're up to the Boston Red Sox. You excited about your Red Sox this year?
Never. Not usually, no. The last couple of years have been a little iffy, but we'll see. The lineup, there's a lot of questions in that lineup. But if you remember, Fancy, you and I did a radio show one time where we went player by player on the Boston Red Sox, and that team went to the World Series. So, right. And I hated pretty much every player on that team. So, you know what? Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong.
Yeah, you have a bunch of people that are watching you right now, all of our Bettor fans saying, oh, please, I hope John hates Masataka Yoshida, because that's someone – good eye at the plate. We're going to talk about him among other players on this team. Only a few more teams left to preview in the MLB. But before we go any further, we got to give the Playbook's first play of the day. All right, J.I., you know how this works. You can give a bet. If you wanted to do a DFS play, you can, but Ronas and I generally do NBA bets for this. When the season starts up for the MLB, we'll also get some MLB bets in. What about you? What are you going with for today for the first play?
Yeah, listen, I'm a little surprised at what the odds are here, but it just goes to show you the way this guy has been playing right now. I'm going to go with Trae Young recording a double-double tonight. They're at home against the Golden State Warriors. It's minus 145 to hit the double-double. For most players, more often than not, unless you're, Nikola Jokic, your double-double odds are at least plus money at some point here. But minus 145 on the double-double for Trae Young. He's been an assist machine. His scoring has been unbelievable of late. Golden State is a bad team on the road if you look at their home road splits this year. So give me Trae Young on the double-double at minus 145.
I like that. I mean, man, wish you got a little bit better odds there, but that's still fine. It's not minus 190 or anything like that. Minus 350 like any old center.
Jokic is minus 405 tomorrow. So, it could be worse.
Bro, his point props, by the way, Jokic, incredible. Yeah. So it's like what we're seeing, how low they are. So, John, taking the Trae Young double-double, I am going to go with Patrick Beverley over 4.5 rebounds. Over the last couple, he's gotten 10, came out and said that he is the best rebounding point guard ever to ever play the game. Think about all those point guards from the past, the Jason Kidds of the world, the Baron Davises of the world, the Tiny Archibalds of the world, and all of a sudden, you've got this guy who's now grabbing double-digit boards, and he's gone over this in about 8 of his last 9. So tonight in this matchup here, as the Bulls are getting ready to face the Timberwolves, Timberwolves aren't the best defensively. They have been playing a little bit better, but I see this prop at 4.5, kind of like you with Trae Young. It's at minus 145. That's about my limit there. But, John, I'm thinking Patrick Beverley's going over 4.5 rebounds at minus 145 on DraftKings. Around the same odds John Mpemba has for Trae Young to nail that double-double. First plays of the day for the playbook. Besides that, John, let's talk about what else is going on in the NFL before we get to Dan Servo-Didio. I mean, it's been a wild week of free agency and trades, and we're going to talk to Britt especially about your Patriots, but How are you feeling about the Pats going into this season? You encouraged at all? It's going to be a very, very competitive division.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the post-Tom Brady era in New England has certainly had its bumps in the road. I am mildly encouraged by the fact that they brought in Bill O'Brien. They have an actual offensive coordinator this year. It's not Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, flipping coins on who's going to call plays on that given day. I do like that Ramondre Stevenson's sort of come ups last year in development, and he's going to be the lead back. Juju Smith-Schuster, we know what he can be if he can stay healthy. A lot of people were sad to see Jacoby Myers go, but I think ultimately, if you put them on the field together, Juju's the better overall player. And then you bring in Mike Gesicki, who, when you look at his success under Brian Flores and a similar style of offensive system that the Patriots like to run, he had 2 700-plus yard seasons there in Miami. When Flores wasn't there, he wasn't utilized correctly under McDaniel and under Adam Gase, and he struggled. He's going to go to New England. They're going to have him out there playing, that quote-unquote big slot that Andrew Cooper likes to tout all the time when he talks about tight ends here. So I do like the two moves. I think they're going to address offensive line in the draft. They're the 14th overall pick. I think trying to get an offensive tackle at some point will do wonders for them. And then it's whether or not Mac Jones can develop here. He looked really good as a rookie, regressed last year with the poor coordinator and play calling, and Bailey Zappi kind of overtaking him at times, and getting Billy O'Brien in there, a guy that he's familiar with from Alabama, to set this offense. This is a prove it year, I think, for Mac Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a prove it year for a few guys there, including Tua Tagovailoa as well. I thought last year might have been that, but they got to give the guy another year. The year kind of taken away from him. You know what the problem I was thinking about this, John? The problem with Tua, at this point, he's going to be a target next season. Second he goes down, I don't think he'll get as long of a leash as most other quarterbacks. That's the problem now, because he was the guy that had the controversy, whether he should have come back, just how concussed he was, and then it happened again. Yeah. I feel like with Tua, unfortunately, he takes a fall, his head hits the ground, you're really not going to see him. There's going to be no wiggle room when it comes to this guy.
It's unfair comparisons, but you look at Troy Aikman and Steve Young, and once they started getting their concussions, they became more and more frequent on those hits. And now the fact that in those days, they didn't have a spotter, right? Aikman and Young, unless they were like visibly knocked out, were still playing concussed half the time. If Tua goes down, like you said, and he gets up slowly, his head hits the ground, they're going to pull him from those games. They're going to have him checked. They're going to have all these now precautions, basically the Tua rules. They were already having the spotters for concussions, but after the way and the fallout from last season with Tua specifically, you got to think there's going to be a heightened sensitivity around this. And Tua especially, if he takes any sort of hits to the head or tough tackles, you could be seeing him pulled from games, which is a liability if you're the Miami Dolphins, because you can't risk your quarterback being taken out every 2 seconds because the league's trying to protect them.
That's why they got Mike White. Some people were wondering, Mike White, really 2-year deal? I mean, look, you just, at this point with the way this Dolphins team is set up, you just need a guy that's somewhat serviceable to be able to throw the ball. That's not Skylar Thompson. Although would you have said that if the Bills lost to the Dolphins in the playoffs, maybe the biggest upset in NFL playoff history?
It would go up there. I mean, Skylar Thompson was one of the worst quarterbacks we've seen in football in a little bit. I was surprised they didn't try to keep Teddy Bridgewater for more insurance. Mike White was fine, but if Mike White's in a football game for you, I don't really know. I don't know if Miami is going to be as competitive as they would have been with Bridgewater. Bridgewater himself had some injury issues. He's a veteran, probably would have cost them a little bit more money, and they made that Jalen Ramsey trade, so they needed to drop some salary somewhere. Signing a cheaper backup quarterback was certainly a way to do it.
They retain their 2 running backs, and this reminds me, and I was telling Ryan Hallam this at the Family Times podcast. New episode just dropped on fantasyalarm.com earlier today, and I was talking with Ryan about this and said, man, the way this run game is going to go, it reminds me of the draft day decisions we had to make a few years ago when the Buccaneers were rolling with both Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. They were being drafted in like the 9th and 10th round. Unfortunately, seeing these guys back together in Miami, seeing Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, it really doesn't turn me on to either one of them for fantasy.
Listen, the one thing we saw last year when both running backs were healthy was Jeff Wilson that started to take over as the lead back in that team. And then Wilson went down with his injury and Mostert sort of climbed up. And then when Mostert would go down, it was Wilson. It's going to be a headache. And why is it going to be a headache? Because it's a Mike McDaniel offense, just like we saw with Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. They love their running back rotations. They brought back Myles Gaskins again. Like, that guy sucks. Like, unless he must be a good special teamer, right? That's the only thing I can think of. Like, sometimes you see these players on teams, you're like, why on earth is this guy on the roster? And then you look, he's like a really great gunner on kickoffs, right? Or something like that. And he plays special teams for them. I don't think Myles Gaskin's anything special, but Mostert and Wilson, I think you're going to find themselves continuing to be in a timeshare. Both are also very injury prone. So if you're in like a best ball or a fantasy league and you draft one of them, I think you can almost expect there to be games in the season where they're the number one running back because the other one is going to be out.
Right, absolutely. Speaking of the AFC East, by the way, the New York Jets, with the whole drama with the Aaron Rodgers situation, man, I watched that Pat McAfee show and the interview and everything like that. It went from I'm not here to make an announcement to, well, my intention is to play for the Jets. And unfortunately, any leverage that the Jets may have had went out the window at that point. Because now you've got every single Jet fan. Now, what kind of Aaron Rodgers are they getting? They're getting an Aaron Rodgers that's going to complete 62, 63% of his passes. Are they going to get an Aaron Rodgers who finds the fountain of youth? To me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's not like it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, all this drama surrounding what seems to be not a washed-up quarterback, but someone who definitely has shown his age. I know he won the MVP a couple of years ago. Is it worth it? Is it worth the squeeze for Aaron Rodgers at this point?
I don't know. Like, he said before he went into his like blackout retreat, he was 90% retired.
Yeah.
And he comes out and all of a sudden he wants to play football. Like, I worry about commitment issues with this guy. And I worried about commitment issues with him last year. And you know what? He played, but it wasn't his best season by far. And you have to wonder, like, how much of his struggles was the fact that they didn't have Devontae Adams, obviously, dealing with some rookie wide receivers and some lesser talent kind of around him. But he also had some horrible decision making. Like, he turned the football over in the red zone a ton, and that wasn't because Christian Watson was in the wrong spot. That was just him throwing interceptions against the Detroit Lions on the 3-yard line. That's him. So how much of that is his effort, is his preparation, is his focus in still playing football? If he goes to the Jets and they aren't winning, like, is that going to then, change his attitude? The guy is borderline retired, right? He's at an age where any season could be his last. And if it goes downhill, who's to say he quits? And then what are you giving up for him? I've seen reports that the Packers want like multiple first-round picks. He's not, he's not 35 years old. Like, doesn't have a couple of years left. He's maybe got 1, 2 max if he has a great season this year. I would not be a team jumping at the bit to acquire him. But if your other option is Zach Wilson, I mean, you got to do something there, right? You got to make some sort of move. So
this is why I wanted Jimmy Garoppolo. I wanted Jimmy Garoppolo more than any other quarterback for this Jets team.
Yeah.
And now I got to watch him hang out with Devontae Adams in Vegas. And that stinks right there. Just like you're right. They're going to get it. The Packers can get whatever they want. And if they wait until June, it's even less of a hit on them. So with the trade, so they could drag this out for months at this point. Good luck, Jets fans. Same old Jets. Same old Mets. Edwin Diaz goes down celebrating, tears his knee. Same old Mets. Why do I root for these stupid teams?
I can't answer that. I mean, I most of my teams have won during my lifetime. So
yeah, that's true.
I don't really know. I don't really know what that's like. I'm starting to feel it. Certainly starting to feel it with the way the Red Sox and the Patriots have been playing these last few years. But I have the number one. I have like the top basketball team and NHL team as well. So yeah.
I don't know about basketball team anymore, Jay.
I still think when push comes to shove in the playoffs, they hear that team is ready to go. But yes, recent form Celtics, lack of focus maybe is a problem. I'm not really sure.
If you want to bet if this happens in the conference finals, Milwaukee, Boston, if you want to place a wager on the series, I will place that wager and take Milwaukee.
Okay.
So, something to think about. Maybe it's the conference final the NBA is dreaming of, knowing their luck, though, they're going to get some form of Cleveland, Boston, or Philadelphia, and somebody else that's a bottom feeder that pulls an upset, because that's just the way things go.
I'm still terrified of Miami. I had this conversation with someone the other day, and they were looking at Miami. They're down sort of the bottom of the Eastern Conference playoff rankings there, but if they get into the dance, like Jimmy Butler, Bam, they have Love, who I think they're kind of just reserving a little bit for the playoff push. They have still Kyle Lowry, who they're kind of reserving for the playoff push. Oladipo, like that team is playoff hardened, playoff tested, and when they get into the playoffs, I don't think they're going to be an easy out. That team has gone deep in the playoffs a couple of years in a row now. That's a team I'm afraid of. If I don't want an early round draw against the Miami Heat. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: Sacramento is lucky that Miami's not in their conference. Miami will slow that pace down. The Kings, if they're not hitting shots, will be in trouble. That's how you take an offensive-powered force like the Sacramento Kings out of rhythm. Why didn't any of those Dallas Mavericks teams win in the 2000s? It's because they had a lot of offense, but you took them out of rhythm. We're getting you ready for the upcoming baseball season with the Bettor Baseball Preview. From fantasy baseball to MLB betting and the newest baseball cards for 2023. You can access our exclusive content for free right now at bettorsports.com, featuring some of the sharpest baseball minds in the industry like Adam Ronis, Ray Flowers, Kyle Elfrink, and Cody Decker, former big leaguer. Get player profiles, prop bets and futures, sleepers and busts, fantasy draft strategy, collectibles, and more at no cost. Register now at bettorsports.com to get instant access plus notifications when new features are released. A Bettor Baseball Preview at bettorsports.com. We got our guy, Mr. Furman himself, Dan Servo-Didio, on deck, set to talk about what's gone on in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It's March Madness, baby, and you're watching the Playbook here on Bettor Sports Network.
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Bettor Sports Network.
Washington Commander fans, it's time to the day you've been waiting for. Seems like it's finally on the way. And you know what day I'm talking about. No, not the next time you have a parade down Constitution Avenue. That's still years away. But the day you get to say goodbye to the man who has owned that franchise since 1999. It's Daniel Snyder. You know it well because he's been the worst owner in sports in the 24 years he's owned that football team. That once proud franchise, the Washington Redskins, the Hogs, the championships, Doug Williams, Joe Gibbs. Now what you have left behind? Memories of Albert Hainsworth. How did that work out? Horrible free agent signings, not to mention the scandals. Just this past 18 months alone, the horrible reveal of the Commanders' team name when everybody knew who it was the day before. Oh, that Sean Taylor statue, that gimmick, that joke. How about the touchdown celebration of the mascot, the Tutty? That was horrible. You keep getting in your way, time and time again. The best thing you had for your fan base this offseason was hiring them an offensive coordinator. And now the later scandals, financial misconduct, all these things you got going on. Yet you want Roger Goodell in the NFL to look the other way while you negotiate your sale of the team on your terms. It don't work like that. Only person you really got on your side is Jerry Jones, and it's not going to be enough. So go ahead, Daniel Snyder. Do the right thing. Sell the team, go on about your business. Don't worry about this no more. The fan base deserves better. You've done a lot to tear this situation down. It's just time to walk away. Don't try to negotiate your own terms. Do the right thing and give the Washington, D.C. natives, give the people inside the Capital Beltway their team back. You can find more contents like this at Bettor Network on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team while you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network.
Back here on the Playbook on Bettor Sports Network, Justin Fensterman, John and Pemba with you. J.I. filling in for Adam Ronis. He'll be back Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Joining us, he joined us earlier in the week. Then we talked to his compadre from fantasyalarm.com, Pete Cole. It's Dan Servo-Didio back in action, coming off that amazing call, which Servo, I listened to you, man. I put Furman advancing over Virginia in the bracket. Such a stupid play by Virginia. First getting trapped in the corner at the end. Come on, man. That's basic youth league stuff right there. You don't dribble too much, and you certainly don't dribble it in the corner, only for him to try to throw a full court heave to get intercepted. Come on, man. As soon as you saw that ball in the air going all the way full court, you knew that bad things were happening. Great call by you on Furman, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for bringing me on, guys. I guess Kai Clark, the point guard for UVA, was just trying to chuck it up, thought he had less time and was just trying to run the clock out. But yeah, sometimes you need stuff like that to bail you out and have an upset call work out in your favor.
I mean, it's March Madness for a reason, right? We've seen crazy plays like that happen throughout the course of history. Fancy, it's not only do you not get trapped in the corner, but the one thing, my youth basketball coach used to tell me was like, come to the ball. Everybody was just staying where they were, spread out. They weren't trying to create lanes for him to be able to pass that ball out. So mistakes all around there.
Yeah.
But Servo, so they won. Do they make it any further? How far do you see Furman going here?
Yeah, I mean, I picked them to win mostly because of the matchup against Virginia and just Virginia having a history of losing to double-digit seeds in the last few years. So that was like the main reason. I just knew it was a bad matchup because Furman offensively could hang with Virginia that does not have a strong offense, and if they get down, they can go long stretches without scoring. And ironically, that they're going to face a San Diego State team that is a similar fashion to UVA, a strong defensive team playing a slow tempo for the most part, and especially an offense can go without a bucket for a few minutes at a time, and struggles, especially late in the game to just get, string together multiple buckets and stops in a row. And it can let Furman hang around. I mean, Furman's going to make this a game because they're efficient on offense. They shoot a ton of threes and can kind of get hot that way. And they have a couple guys, Jalen Slauson, Mike Bothwell, who are both, could play at a D1 level, but they're at Furman. So they're going to make this close. I don't see them winning. If they pull this upset, I don't see them beating Alabama if that's the matchup next. But if it ends up being Maryland, they could beat Maryland. But yeah, they're gonna. This is a legit opponent to take seriously for San Diego State. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the next one.
Servo, we got a little bit of a problem here. There's still 10 minutes left to go in this game, but Creighton, your boys, only up by 3, man, on NC State. Are you nervous at all?
I'm very nervous. Well, listen, NC State, they have an offense to keep pace with Creighton here. I knew this would be a battle, and obviously I picked Creighton to go to the championship game. Actually, I ended up picking them over Alabama, to beat Alabama to go to the Final Four. And obviously taking a 6 seed to do that is risky, and I knew they had to get past this test because coming up, in their bracket. They got Baylor next if they beat them, but Arizona losing is huge for Creighton's path. So, but this is a test. I got it on my screen to the left here. Just kind of keeping an eye on it. We'll see.
You mentioned Arizona losing, opening up. Princeton there, 15 seed, upsetting 2, ruining a lot of brackets there. I had Arizona in my Elite 8. Didn't have them going much further, but still, I know a lot of people picked them to win. What went wrong? How did Princeton pull off the 15-2 upset?
Yeah, Princeton came into that game, not surprisingly because it's Princeton and they're going to be well prepared, but they came in with a really good game plan, and they clearly scouted Arizona well to frustrate them offensively, kind of limit, funnel all the offense right to their big man Azuolas Tubelis and take away other options on the offensive end. And defense, they ran some great sets to beat Arizona's defense, which is suspect at times. So if you watch the game, they're running all the right things, and you kind of got the feeling that Arizona might pull away eventually just because they have the better athletes and just the better talent overall. But Princeton was well prepared. They came in ready to go. I'm honestly not surprised Arizona lost. I didn't pick Princeton to beat them, but there's a reason I picked Creighton to beat Arizona eventually. is because Arizona had just some big flaws to me this year. You know, they relied too much on Tubelis, their center, and just lacked like a secondary, clear second or third offensive options. They got a lot of inconsistency from guys like Pelle Larson, Kirk Kriisa, who were expected to take a leap up this year and really never fully got there to be like an NBA level prospect, but they're just kind of they didn't take that full leap step, and then it came to light in this game. You know, Kirk Kriisa went like 0 for 7 from 3, and Larson only had, I think, single digit points, so it's just not going to get it done. And Arizona had some bad losses throughout the season. They were only, one of the only teams that was 1 or 2 seed that suffered like multiple bad losses on their resume. So that was another thing just coming in. Like, we shouldn't be surprised if they lose a game like this, and it happened, yesterday.
Servo, we talked about how hot Duke was coming in to this tournament. I mean, winning the ACC championship, just their players that were hurt earlier in the year, now back, the rust is off, they're gelling together. I don't want to say they smashed Oral Roberts, but they pretty much did. Oral Roberts had themselves a little bit of a run, about 10 minutes left to go, I was noticing in this game, but then Duke was able to kind of halt that. Now that we saw Duke beat them up like we did, because there were a lot of people that had Oral Roberts winning this game and maybe even busting up brackets, how much more confident are you in Duke now? Just how far can the Blue Devils go?
Yeah, it was a impressive showing, and I honestly did not pick Oral Roberts to win that. I know it was like a popular upset pick, but I just thought Duke would not come surprised by Oral Roberts and Max Asmus, who's their top scorer there, and that came to light. They really shut him down and ultimately shut down Oral Roberts in that game. But Duke is very dangerous, to your point. They play Tennessee next, and Tennessee's a team I've had my eye on to lose early at some point because they lost their best player, their senior leading point guard, or not senior, sophomore, but Zakai Ziegler being out for them is huge. And I know it's going to come back to bite them at some point, having a worse offensive and defensively. And they almost lost to Louisiana in that game. But Duke, for sure, they're all clicking at the right time. And this is a team I talked about with you guys the other day, Fensty, is that they have, 3 or 4 NBA players on their team right now, and
that are going to come out this year to the draft.
Yeah, Derek Lively, Derek Whitehead for sure this year. I think Kyle Filipowski for sure too. So that's like 3 right there. But then they have, a couple other 5-star freshmen: Tyrese Proctor, Mark Mitchell, and Jeremy Roach. I didn't even mention is like kind of their vet point guard who was there last year for the Final Four run. So he's got that experience. He knows what he's doing, and he was their best player yesterday in the win over Oral Roberts. And the other guys didn't, Kyle Filipowski has been their best player all year, didn't really even do much in that game. But this team, they have the talent, and it's just like one of those things. We saw it with Kentucky, when they had like Devin Booker, that team, and it was they just have so much talent that it's just hard not to, it's hard to ignore it. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they keep this going. They can definitely go far and make a run.
So we had a fair share of blowouts yesterday. When looking at the rest of the games on today's slate, looking like a lot more closer projected point spreads here. Which are some of the close games that you're keying in on, and which sides are you taking in those?
Yeah, the Florida Atlantic Memphis game is going to be a nice one. 8-9 matchup. And, I mentioned this with you guys, Fensty. I think the winner of this game beats Purdue. So I'm really excited to see who comes out of this. I picked Memphis to win this, but I think either team has the talent overall to really push Purdue in that second round matchup. So that'll be a fun one and one of the higher totals tonight. So that's going to be a really good watch. Drake Miami, Drake has been a popular pick too, kind of that 12-5. And listen, I remember talking to you, Fensty, giving you a stat of like how many 12-5 upsets there have been over the last like 20 years.
Wasn't it like 17 of 20 or 27 of 30?
Yeah, it was 17 of 20 and like 33 total over the 20 tournament span. So, and it hasn't happened this year yet. We have not, every 12 seed has lost. So, if you just want to go off basic history, take Drake on the money line tonight. Why not? But I do think Drake's going to push Miami here because Miami is just a team that, have a really good, dangerous, potent offense, but their defense has lacked, so they're going to let Drake hang around for sure. And then the one I got my eye on for sure is Kent State I think they're going to get here and have a really good chance to win. I picked this upset in my bracket, but I think like Kent State has a veteran team, and MAC teams over the years have done really well in the tournament, whether it's against the spread or winning straight up. So I think Kent State is definitely going to give Indiana a game tonight.
Hanging out with Dan Servodidio. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan_Servodidio, SERVODIDIO. It's our college sports analyst. I got to do that every so often, Servo. Come on, I'm a kid at heart. You know that. But Servo, you and Pete Cole do a great job. You cover DFS. Then you do for betting pickswise.com as well. So I got to ask you, man, looking forward a little bit. Arkansas, Kansas here. Kansas fans, Jayhawks, rock chalk, not going to be rocking that chalk after that matchup, huh?
This is going to be a tough one. A brutal draw for Kansas, honestly, getting like the winner of Arkansas, Illinois, and then having to face, eventually UConn or UCLA, Gonzaga. But this matchup is going to be a test for sure. I mean, Arkansas, like Duke, they have two legit NBA prospects, Nick Smith and Anthony Black, going to be probably both lottery picks, but both in the first round of the NBA next year for you guys to watch. But they leaning on those two guys, but they also have a ton of talent elsewhere. And a coach in Eric Musselman who's taken Arkansas to the Elite Eight in the past 2 years. And he did it with two teams. If you just look at their rosters, it was a ton of roster turnover between both. And he's one of those best coaches of finding guys in the transfer portal. And this year he has two top freshmen in Smith and Black, as I mentioned. So he's a guy that just in the tournament, he seems to get it done no matter what team he has. I think last year, the year before, he did it with a 5 seed Arkansas team that made the Elite Eight. They beat Gonzaga last year. So this is a team they're not going to – I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas wins this game straight up. And Kansas, just to keep in mind, they don't have Bill Self, their head coach right now. He might be back tomorrow, but he's had some heart problems, and he recently had surgery. I don't know if he's going to be on the sidelines for this. So, I mean, that's just like one of those small things, just keep in the back of your mind.
You mentioned them potentially facing UConn. UConn currently down at halftime to Iona, 39-37. Yeah. Do you think Iona is primed to pull off an upset here?
Well, yeah, this was a team I had. I almost picked in my bracket, but I did not ultimately. But like Iona, coached by Rick Pitino, which it has to be taken into account no matter how good the team is or not. But they have guys that could be probably playing at a D1 level, but they went to Iona because of Pitino. So like this is a team with more talent than your normal mid-major. And yeah, they're playing with UConn here. UConn, another reason why I almost picked UConn to lose is because they also have a history of losing in the first round. They did it last year, lost to New Mexico State in the first round as a 5 seed, I think. And the year before that with Dan Hurley in his first year. So, they can be it can happen here. And that would even open up this region even more, which would be crazy.
Speaking of crazy, I mean, we got to see what happens with these 1 seeds here, especially Houston. I mean, not that impressive. So you got to see, man, this is why they call it March Madness. These things do happen. All bets are off now, Servo, ever since Virginia went down a few years ago as a 1 seed.
Yeah.
Just wild that when we see that now, it makes it more realistic that this can happen again. We just had a freaking 15 take out a 2.
Yeah, and third year in a row, a 15 has beaten a 2, actually. So that's crazy. But yeah, I'm a little worried about Houston here. Look, I picked them to win the whole thing, but this Marcus Sasser injury, he's got a groin injury, and he tried to play yesterday through it, but apparently tweaked it and re-injured and sat out the rest of the game. So he wasn't there, and it almost cost them losing to Northern Kentucky. But Jamal Shedd also has a knee injury. Something to keep in mind here. Apparently he has a hyperextended knee or something. So I'm a little worried about Houston. But yeah, they could be vulnerable, especially against Auburn this next game. I mean, just keep an eye on that.
Doing that indeed, Servo. And by the way, you mentioned about who you had to win. Who else are in your Final Four?
Yeah, all 4 of my Final Fours are still alive, so I'm sticking with it. Creighton, and listen, we got a 6-point lead with 6 minutes left. Okay.
He's nervous, John. John, how nervous is Servo right now?
I mean, like, I want to know how nervous he is because I actually see it as a 3-point lead. I don't know if you're ahead of me or not, but yeah,
maybe you're ahead of me.
NC State plus 360 in the live line. What do we think? Do we, is Creighton falling apart here? What's the call?
I would not do that. Listen, I have Creighton, Houston. I'm very nervous though to answer your question. Because last year, of course, I had Kentucky winning the whole thing. I'll admit it, and they lost to St. Peter's in the first round. So that happened. I am seeing a 3-point lead now. I guess I'm behind you there.
It's okay. At least for now, Creighton's not behind. So every little bit counts. Servo, thank you so much again. You've stopped by multiple times this week on the Playbook. Again, everybody give Dan a follow. I mean, he's excellent when it comes to college basketball. And I'm not just saying that because I've known the guy half my life, it seems like. But you could just tell from the way he talks, he's passionate. He watches all these games. He keeps up with all the mid-major, boring-ass schools, like in the Patriot League, where it's a lot of slow play. And he's got to know about the Colgates of the world. And you can give him a follow on Twitter at Dan_ServoDidio and follow all of his work at fantasyalarm.com and Pickswise.com. Servo, have a great weekend, and thank you so much again for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you guys for bringing me on.
For sure. Man, John, Creighton on the ropes right now, man. I love that you brought up the money line.
I'm just saying, it's plus 350 on the line. If Creighton's blowing a lead here, a game's full of momentum. If there was less time, I think I'd be a little bit more inclined, but there's still over 5 minutes to go in this half. So more time for Creighton to sort of recoup and retake this over. But 3-1 on North Carolina. They're only down 3 here. They're minus 110 at plus 4.5 points. So a lot going on in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep you up to date on how this game ends. Those have Creighton biting off their fingernails right now. Iowa State down 46-30 with 5 to go in the second half. Pittsburgh as an 11th seed beating Iowa State, the Cyclones, and then Iona beating UConn. Makes me a little bit nervous because I got UConn in the Final Four. Iona up by 2 points. That Rick Pitino must have the refs on the take or something like that. I'm just saying I don't know anything, John. Sure. I really don't know anything, of course.
Rick Pitino's never been involved in any sort of scandal. So,
no, squeaky clean coach. Throughout his career. One of the cleanest out there. He's John Impemba. Give him a follow on Twitter at jimpemba777. Yours truly at FedSty Sports. We got our producers with us today. AB, the resource, Adam Bernard, and the People's Board Op, Jared Moore. Let's talk about the Boston Red Sox. Let's see who John from his team that he loves so much is going to love for fantasy baseball. What players might that be? Find out in the Playbook here on BSN.
Whether you collect sports memorabilia, fantasy championships, or winning bet slips, talk about it on Bettor Sports Network. Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray. Weekdays at noon Eastern, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
Vladdy swings at the first pitch and lines it into right center.
How did a guy who was being selected in the first round pretty well everywhere last year, he proceeded to lose 33 runs, to lose 16 homers, to lose 14 RBIs, and to lose 37 points in batting average. Oh, and 184 points in OPS. He went down everywhere. How does that guy, Vlad Jr., still register as the #1 fantasy first baseman? Ahead of Paul Goldschmidt, who won the MVP last season. Ahead of Mr. Freddie Freeman, who does the same thing every year, which is hit .315 with 25 homers and 100 ribbies. Ray, it's like Vlad Guerrero Jr. had nothing to worry about. It's like they thought they were getting him and his dad, as you can see there on the photo. You get both of them when you draft him at #1. I'm just surprised, and it was not a bad season, but Ray, it was such a disappointment compared to what he posted in 2000.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair to say. Vladimir Guerrero, in 3 of the 4 years, he's been average to good. He had one spectacular season. And we keep talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. The positives are the lineage, the positives are the skill set, the positives are the StatCast data, which everything's like top 5% murders the baseball. The negatives are he has not hit 275 in 3 or 4 years. We keep talking about this too. He does not hit the ball in the air. It's remarkable, his ability to hit 30-plus home runs, given that he never gets the ball in the air. His ground ball rate last year was 52%.
Well, and we're asking the question, how is he still number one at first? But what catches me even more so, Ray, is the overall. I mean, he's a first-round pick overall, and I don't think he has any business in the first round. I look at his profile, and there are so many guys going behind Vlad that just have business in the first round that deserve to be there. Freeman, Machado, Bichette, Rafael Devers, I think maybe Pete Alonso. You put Austin Riley ahead of him. If he gets 310, 30, 190, he's a first rounder.
I think the play with Vlad is the batting average, because he hits the ball monstrously hard. I could see him hitting 320.
Can you hit 320 with a 52% ground ball rate?
You can, but it helps if you're athletic and fast. And he's
Yeah, exactly. And I get it. His hit tool's strong, Ray, and he's good. It's funny his ground ball percentage is that high because on the occasions when I get to watch Blue Jays baseball, I don't see it. I see him hit the ball. And it's not really grounders. I'm surprised the number is that high. It feels like he stings the baseball, but I guess there's just no lift overall in his game.
It's just a little tweak to his swing that could really lead to that growth back toward where he was in the home run column. And I think people, he's done it. This is not hypothetical. He did it 2 years ago, and he's still just 23.
Make bets and follow your fantasy team while you buy, sell, and trade collectibles in real time. Only on Bettor Sports Network.
$150 キロの球を弾き返してレフト方向、大きな当たりはスタンド、飛び込んでいった吉田正尚、逆転のツーランホームラン、これが4番の一振り。
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Bettor Sports Network.
Feds D and the Impemba back with you. John, can you translate that highlight we just heard?
I think he hit a double. I think that's what it was.
That's your guess right there.
Sure.
Well, we're going to be hearing a lot of that here from Masataka Yoshida. We're going to be previewing the Boston Red Sox as part of our preview series here. BSN On Demand has all of our team previews. J.I. overall, let's talk about your Red Sox for a minute here. Always a tough division. However, they don't have to battle in the division as much now. But I got to ask you, man, with this team looking at some of the odds here, you're talking about plus 5,000 to win the World Series, plus 2,500 to win the AL, plus 1,500 to win the AL East. Man, I'm looking at your face, and it's just you don't have any hope, man, for this team. I can tell.
Here's the thing. They need a lot of good breaks. They need young players to come up and produce. Like they need the breakout year from Tristan Casas. Right? Like you absolutely have to rely on that offensive bat to be in the middle of the lineup. He doesn't have to hit 300. He's got to hit 250 to 260. He's got to give 25 to 30 home runs. He's got to give you at least 80 RBI. Otherwise, you have nothing in that lineup. They don't have a leadoff hitter, right? They're apparently Alex Cora says Yoshida's going to hit in the middle of their order. So they're not even going to hit him leadoff. Initially, people thought Yoshida was going to be their leadoff guy because he has a great eye at the plate, works the count, good on base percentage, you can get on base, to quote, a Billy B in there, right? Like your job is to get on base. That's what Yoshida can do. They're going to hit him in the middle of the lineup because they don't have anybody. So Devers is going to hit probably two or three. Casas is going to hit in the middle of the lineup somewhere. Verdugo, there's so many unanswered questions to this lineup now with no JD Martinez, no Xander Bogaerts, Trevor Story's hurt. There's just so much up in the air about how guys are going to slot. Justin Turner, but he took the pitch to the face. So when is he going to be good to come back? You thought you could at least slot him in there somewhere. The lineup itself is messy. I just looked now, Fensty. The Red Sox have one player being drafted in the top 100 of fantasy baseball drafts right now. It's Rafael Devers. And then it goes Kenley Jansen, and then it goes Chris Sale. Their next hitter is Yoshida going off the board at 188, which is almost not being drafted, right? Depending on how many teams are in your league and how many rounds you go, top 300, there's only a handful of guys that are even being drafted in fantasy baseball leagues on the Boston Red Sox right now. Doesn't make me feel great as a fan, because fantasy isn't always reality, but you need people that can produce. So I think this is going to be a year where I'm more excited to see development of Casas and maybe Brian Bayo this year, and see if those two guys who are the top prospects in the system can kind of take that next step into their development this year. Because Marcelo Mayer's 2 years away. He was, projected number one overall player in our system. He's a couple of years away. We have a decent farm system. I think it's in around the top 10. So guys will be working their way up. Brian Mata, a pitcher that's in our AAA system, is up there. This, to me, feels just like a bridge year. Can Chris Sale stay healthy? Can Yoshida acclimate? What do we got in Garrett Whitlock or Tanner Houck this year? Things like that. I don't think the Red Sox are going to win many games. I've been wrong before with this team, but you look at this lineup, I don't know. It does. Corey Kluber's our opening day starter. I mean, I don't know.
I saw that.
I mean, what do we?
We go back in a time machine about 7 years for that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't like what we got going on here, truthfully.
So, from what you just said, especially with us seeing closers being driven up the board, they're the cat's meow. People are, I don't want to say overdrafting them, but they want to get themselves some security, especially now that the top guy is not going to be pitching this year in Edwin Diaz. So it's going to be moving them up a little bit more. From what you just said, does that completely turn you off to drafting Kenley Jansen where you're seeing him go?
No, because he's not being drafted early, right? He's kind of being drafted in that, I guess I'll pick hundreds, like round 8, round 9, in that range, depending on your league, if you're in a 12-man league. So, that's fine. That's usually where I start to look at my closers. And I still think the Red Sox are going to win games. I don't think they're going to be like a 50-win team, right? I think, what does Vegas have? I don't have
78.5.
Yeah, I figure they're around a 500 team. I think they're going to play close games. I think Kenley can get 30 saves this year. I'm not too worried about that.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'd be fine going ahead and targeting Kenley Jansen here. It all depends again on how this bullpen rotation kind of works itself out. But I do think that this team is good enough. And the fact that I like that they spread out the schedule now, so you're playing everybody. There are some really bad teams in the MLB, a lot worse than the Boston Red Sox. Now the fact that you're actually going to be playing those teams this year, no matter what, it's not like, oh, you're only playing the AL West this year and the NL North, no, you're playing everybody. So, so to me, I do think there's opportunities for Boston to win games and for Jansen to get saves. He's their second player off the board. Chris Sale, who we're doing the mock draft army with Howard Bender right now. I've done the 2 that he's been in. One draft, Chris Sale went in round 8, and then another draft, I got him in round 14. So people don't really know what to do with Chris Sale right now, it seems like. I'm willing to take flyers on him. He's still Chris Sale. If he's healthy, I'm going to go ahead and be happy with him where he's at his current ADP. 135 right now in the high-stakes NFC leagues in March. So it feels like a pretty safe play to me.
Yeah, I mean, is Rafael Devers, you mentioned him, be the only player recent draft boards in the NFBC, the high-stakes leagues, being drafted inside the top 100. This is a guy who hit close to 300, about 295, nearly 90 RBIs, a bunch of home runs, not like anything like 40-plus, but hit about 26, 27 last year. Are you interested in drafting him at all with where he's going in the top 100?
So I have him on my draft boards only because of how bad the third base position is. If you wait too long at third base, you just run out of guys to put there. So for me, position scarcity plays a lot into my baseball draft strategy. So if Devers is there, yeah, I have no problems. I understand what he did last year, the 27 home runs, 88 RBIs, 84 runs scored. The batting average was fine. The OBP was fine. The OPS was great, right? So you're still looking at him to take that next step. He's kind of he's in his quote unquote power prime, right? 25 to 28, I think is what they usually say a power prime is. He's 26. He hit 38 home runs in 2021. So the power definitely can be there. It's what the lineup's going to be around him. That's my biggest worry. Are they going to be able to put enough guys around him to where his counting stats can make him worthy of being a top 2 round pick? I don't know, but I think because of if you wait too long at third base, it just gets bad. So I'm fine taking Devers just because it's going to give you that over a position of anybody else. It's like drafting tight ends in fantasy. It's like you take Travis Kelce or something like that because the tight ends after the fact all suck. So just take the best in slot and have the advantage at that position over your league mates.
I want to talk about Yoshida for just a couple of minutes. I'm trying to figure out in my mind why they wouldn't lead off with him. Why they would. Maybe it's because, maybe not worried, but they are a little curious on how he's going to adjust to the best pitching in the world that we have here in the MLB.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe because everything you hear, you said it before, John, everything you hear about this guy is that doesn't really strike out. Good eye for the plate. Good eye on the ball. And with that, you wonder, is that going to fully translate to the MLB? Is he going to all of a sudden, this guy coming in this year, he going to be hitting 300? Because with these reviews, you're thinking, okay, he has 310, 315 potential. But then you just have to wonder if he's going to translate. Not everybody translates those skills over to the MLB. Maybe the Red Sox want to put some bats around him, so there isn't thus far early in the season too much pressure on him getting on base.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's sort of the part that Alex Cora said, right? They don't want to throw him right away into that leadoff spot because if he does struggle out of the gate, it could be a tough for him to sort of get that confidence and figure it out. Plus, if you're hitting in the middle of the lineup, like you mentioned, you have some protection. But not only do you have protection, you're not the first guy seeing the pitcher for the day, right? You can go out there and see what the guy has, time him up a little bit while you're on deck, get some feedback from those that are, watching how he's throwing and things like that, and kind of attack your game plan. But I don't know who would be our leadoff hitter then. Kike Hernandez has led off for us at times. Alex Verdugo has led off for them at times. During spring training, we've been seeing Christian Arroyo lead off for Boston. Again, these are the split squad games. So, he's leading off. Not necessarily everybody that's in the starting lineup for Boston is in those games, but Christian Arroyo at the top of the lineup, that's not just lead off Devers at that point, right? I don't know. The lineup to me just doesn't make any sense without Yoshida at the top. And I think maybe eventually he works his way there. Because Kike is not a guy that gets on base a lot, right? He's a low average power hitter. Verdugo should profile best, I think, as a leadoff hitter, but it doesn't seem like they want to put him in there. He's going to be in the middle of the lineup. So, yeah, I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see what happens on opening day.
Yeah, absolutely. It just seems like ever since they parted ways with Mookie Betts, just hasn't been good for this team. That's the thing that I go back to, John, why they didn't retain this guy.
Well, they wanted Jalen Duran to be that guy, but he's just been a 4A star at this point. He goes down to AAA, he mashes, he has ridiculous speed, can't play defense. He has zero feel for the defensive side of the field, which is crazy because he's so fast. You think he'd be great in center field in Fenway or right field in Fenway because of how much room and space is needed to cover there. The guy just can't read a ball off the bat. It's wild to make it to this level as an outfielder and just be so poor at judging those things. But they had hoped that Duran was going to eventually be their leadoff hitter because he flashed in the minor leagues with that batting average, that power, that speed. But when he gets to the major league level, his strikeout rate's north of 30%. So, he doesn't look like he's going to be a guy that's going to get up here early enough to test that out. Maybe he works some things at the minor league level. We see him call up in the middle of the year and he can take that spot. But at least for now, we're going into the season with Yoshida, Adam Duvall, and Alex Verdugo look like the outfield trio.
Wow, very exciting right there in Fenway Park, which I've never been to. One day, I want to sit on the monster.
One of my favorite, I love going to baseball games just for the feel of being at the park. Fenway itself is very uncomfortable to sit in it these days. They haven't done anything to improve the actual look or feel of sitting in Fenway Park. The benches,
but does it give it that rustic, old school feel? Like you're watching a game the exact same place with the exact same setup that someone in 1940 did.
Well, the best feeling that I get going to Fenway is walking up from the concourse because it's set down from the field. So you walk up, and as you walk up, you start to see the field sort of come up over the fence, and you see the green monster. To me, that is such a nostalgia feeling when I go to, and I used to go to a bunch of games every year. Obviously now work, hectic, doing shows and all these things, less time to go to games, but I still find myself going to a couple a year. And I never get old, never get enough of just walking up the Fenway during the pregame and just sort of getting that first feel of being at a ballpark. Nothing really replaces that.
The Boston Red Sox, we just previewed them. We'll go to other teams. Only a few more teams left in our MLB previews, getting you ready for the 2023 fantasy baseball season. He's John Impemba, filling in for Adam Ronis. I'm Justin Fensterman. James Grande on deck to talk a little DFS NBA heading into tonight's games here on the Playbook on Bettor Sports Network.
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Bettor Sports Network.
As a longtime baseball fan, here's my message to other baseball fans, to steal a line from the Packers' future Hall of Fame quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, RELAX. Everyone needs to relax after what we saw this past weekend at spring training games out in Arizona and down in Florida. Got going, and we're inching closer and closer to Major League Baseball opening day. The rule changes in Major League Baseball is not for myself. It's not for you out there, the hardened baseball fan, whether you're a fan 5, 10, 15, 30, or even 50 years from all around this great country. It's not for those that are going to be locked in. It's for trying to generate more fans. So if they want the pitcher to go out there and work in rhythm with a guy on base, begin the windup within 20 seconds, nobody on base, begin the windup within 15 seconds, or have the batter make sure that he's back in the batter's box within 8 seconds, then making the base pass first, second, and third bigger, eliminating the shift. All of this is to make the game better. We've seen leagues, whether it be the National Football League, do they get to the same league as it is today in 2023, or what we saw in 2022 as it was 30 years ago? No, it's not. Is NBA basketball the same? No. How many games do you see being played? 83-79 finals. You don't see that at all. So every league adjusts to try and bring what? More fans into the sport. And that is something that Major League Baseball is going out there and trying to do. I've been critical at times of Rob Manfred, whether or not as a MLB commissioner, whether he likes the sport based on some of the rhetoric that he has spewed in years gone by. But I got to be honest with you, as a longtime baseball fan, I've been a Yankee fan my entire life. Watched a ton of Met games here in the tri-state area. Watched baseball all around. Can't wait for October baseball. Think it's absolutely unbelievable what is transpiring now and what's happening now, and the rule changes being brought about baseball. It's going to bring back to the game to when I became a fan, where the stolen base was something, moving guys over was something, having men on base, batting averages ascending, not being an all or nothing league where either you're striking out or hitting the ball over the fence. And that is what baseball is trying to do. So as everybody tries to adjust, and change is difficult, whether you're changing your diet, exercise routine, changing your relationships, changing a job, change is different. I get that. And it's hard. But let's take a step back. Let's understand what Major League Baseball is trying to do here. And they're trying to repopulate or repopularize the sport. That's what they're trying to do. They're clearly the third most popular sport in the United States. They want to make it less regionalized. This is the way they need to go about doing it. I'm all for it. For more content like this, download the Bettor Sports Network app or go to bettorsports.com.
We control our own destiny. I mean, we're ninth now. I'm not sure what happened or where we are, if we moved up or stayed the same, but we control our own destiny. We just got to keep winning basketball games.
The Playbook, presented by FantasyAlarm.com on Bettor Sports Network.
Fetsty and the Impemba back with you. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you. Hey, some of us got to work today, so for those who are out there, have a little Jameson Coke for your boys over here. John, you a whiskey guy at all?
Yeah, I don't mind. A little Jack and Ginger works for me.
Nice. I like that very much. Joining us, someone else I like also very much from FantasyAlarm.com, even though he just threw me a very nice zinger over instant message. Wow, over G-Chat. It's James Grande. You can follow all his work on the site, FantasyAlarm.com, and give him a follow on Twitter at _real_Grande, the king of the underscores. John, I say to James before we come back, I go, you look nice today. His response to me, you look bald today. James, thanks for the insult. How you doing? It's not an insult. It's my reality, baby. That's all it is. How you doing?
You know, some people could pull bald off better than others, Fancy. That's all I was saying, you know.
So now I can't pull that off. I get that. I get
No,
what you're saying now.
No, I'm just saying, bald looks better on you than it does on, let's say me. Like I have a good set of hair. I'm happy I have it, and I've shaved my head once and it looked horrible. You could pull the bald look off. So, I just stated a fact. You look bald today, but happy St. Patrick's Day to you and to you as well, John.
Thanks.
James, let's talk about tonight's slate, man, because we got some nice juicy matchups here. So before we go into what we're liking when it comes to players in general, what teams are you looking to stack? What matchups are you going to be going ham on, all in on? You're going to be having a major game stack in your DFS lineups.
So I know the answer is to just go look at Vegas and look at the Golden State Atlanta total that has 247 written next to it. But I actually think that's second fiddle to Memphis, San Antonio. And I only say that, especially if you're playing on DraftKings, because the pricing today. DraftKings did this thing where they made the Memphis Grizzlies just too cheap. And, let's face facts. Like Memphis hasn't, they got blown out by Miami, but that's Miami. And Desmond Bane was thrown out of that game. Well, three slates ago, Desmond Bane was $8,500 without John Morant. And the last time I checked, John Morant is not with the team. And 3 slates later, he is $7,400. Mm-hmm. And his opponent today is the San Antonio Spurs, who rank dead last in basically every statistical category defensively. They're a fast-paced team offensively, which is going to only, give us more possessions for Desmond Bane and company. So Memphis, San Antonio is the game I'm looking at the most. And I think it's just coming from a pricing standpoint again. Bane, 7,400, elite spot. Jaren Jackson Jr., 7,300. He was nearly $9K 3 slates ago. Now he's $7,300, multi-position eligible. Love Jaren Jackson, 73. Tyus Jones, 67. We just saw 3 games ago, a 50-point ceiling from Tyus Jones. I think Dylan Brooks is, kind of, F you to what you did to that cameraman the other day, and really just what he does to terrorize the NBA in general. The NBA needs a villain. I just think Dylan Brooks is over the top with it. But he's 5K and, he has a lot of shot volume. Now, more often than not, it doesn't go in. But when we do have the worst defense in the NBA on the other side, Dylan Brooks is going to get open looks 5K. So I like Dylan Brooks. Xavier Tillman's 5,200. That's criminally low. Like Memphis is just really, really cheap. And on the flip side, San Antonio relatively healthy. We have to love what Zach Collins has done. I think Zach Collins has looked amazing in the middle when he's not getting rested on back-to-backs here because the tank. Maybe we see a couple extra minutes now that Charles Bassey's out of the equation. Maybe we do see Zach Collins actually get 30, 32. That would be nice, but we've still seen nearly 50 fantasy point upside. Jeremy Sohan, 30-plus minutes. We know that's your boy, Fancy. The offense is just coming along super nicely with him. So 5,600, no problem getting there. Trey Jones, 32 minutes is nice to see on the surface. It is worth noting it was only 27 in regulation last time out, right? There was overtime in that Dallas game. Take that with a grain of salt, but no Devontae Graham. So now Trey Jones kind of mispriced. I think there's 8 or 9 guys in this game that you're comfortable with, maybe even more if you want to dig into some of that Memphis value. And then obviously Golden State, Atlanta is pretty hard to ignore, but there's not like, there's no discounts over there outside of like Trae Young. Like Golden State's appropriately priced, where Memphis just all feels too cheap.
You're talking about value here. Maybe the best individual matchup on the board tonight is Joel Embiid going up against the Charlotte Hornets. Need some of that value to spend up at center, but you and I debated on the NBA DFS podcast earlier today. Do you need to go up for Joel Embiid when Anthony Davis sitting right there against the Dallas Mavericks tonight? How are you approaching the top tier centers?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you need to get there. I think like if you are comfortable with some of this the murky waters that is the value tier right now, then you can get there. Like, there's a reason why Joel Embiid is now the odds-on favorite to win MVP. That could obviously change, but like he's been extremely dominant every time he stepped on the floor this year. Same goes for Anthony Davis. Really, same. as long as he's been on the floor, he's been dominant. But you don't really need to get there. I mean, I just mentioned Jaren Jackson. He's center eligible on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Evan Mobley, the same thing. He's kind of too cheap as well. 7,600 for a guy who is almost 9K. We know Jared Allen's away. I love Alperen Şengün in tournaments today, and I know that doesn't come as a surprise because I've been, on the bandwagon from draft night, but there's really no reason he should be under 7K. The only time he doesn't play 30 minutes is his fault. He just gets in foul trouble, and that's obviously on the table when Alperen Şengün's on the, playing a basketball game. He is very handsy, but he's been able to stay out of foul trouble largely lately. 3 of the last 4 games over 30 minutes. They've been playing their starters a whole bunch of minutes, them being Houston in general, and 30-plus fantasy points in 5 straight, including a 46-point ceiling. I mentioned Zach Collins. Kevon Looney is a guy that I have a lot of interest in at 5,100 on DraftKings, especially with no Draymond. 3 of the last 4 times it's been a competitive setting with Draymond Green off the floor this year. Looney's played 29-plus minutes, and 2 of those he's top 30. There's no reason that we should expect him to not start. There's no reason that he shouldn't play north of 27, 28, maybe even 29 minutes. It's just another guy who is a vacuum on the glass. There is always double-double upside because his rebounding ability on the offensive end is so high. And there's just going to be a lot of shots in this game just in general, going in, going out, so a lot of opportunity for Looney. So, long-winded answer to say, I think it's fine to get to Embiid and Davis if that's where you end up, but I really don't feel the need to today on tonight's slate. Unless, obviously, let's say Rudy Gobert's ruled out, and then you have like a Naz Reid value opening up, or Curry, who Steve Kerr just said is expected to play, is ultimately ruled out. Like, there's obviously things that can happen from now until 7. We know, like, the NBA is a wild card. But as of now, as it currently stands, I don't think you need to spend all the way up.
The season when you're seeing the underdog injury notes and you're seeing a Spurs player, and then next to the Spurs player in parentheses, Wembanyama. That's how you know that the team is cooked and that you're at the end of the year. We're talking to the king of the underscore. Why is that? Because James Grande's Twitter handle is at _real_Grande. James, want to talk about Trey Murphy? He's been scoring. He's been scoring in double figures. He's had a few good games in a row. He has Houston, who are just garbage. Although, actually, I say that, they've shown signs they've been playing a little bit better. I can't fully discredit them, but still, you got to be looking at these Pelicans for value as well. 6,100 on DraftKings for Trey Murphy. I was wondering with Brandon Ingram and the health situation, him in there, if it would knock Murphy off a little bit. But Zion still being out and the lack of real scoring in the front court, I feel allows Trey Murphy to still be an integral part of the Pelicans offense. How do you feel about him tonight, and especially coming off of a few games where he scored 41 and 20? Is he going to be very, very highly owned tonight?
So I'm indifferent about this, and John has mentioned him every slate. Not that I like poo-poo it. It's more so when the Pelicans have Brandon Ingram on the floor, it's very hard for me to like assess the other guys because Ingram and McCollum just soak up so much of the usage. There's a mess at center that nobody can understand. Essentially, it's going to be the Larry Nance show, I think, from here on out. We saw Nance in his second game back just, leapfrog Valanciunas automatically. And then there's just, the Pelicans have so many wings, right? Like, they could play Josh Richardson at 3 positions. They can play Herb Jones. I love Herb Jones. Herb Jones can play 4 positions. Najee Marshall is a guy that can play a bunch of positions. You have Murphy. Like, what if Murphy doesn't make shots, right? Like, are they going to go to Najee Marshall, or are they going to look to Josh Richardson? At 6,100, I understand that he's been great. The Portland game, there was no Brandon Ingram. The return of Ingram, 38 minutes was amazing. 14 shots, good. But when you look at like more than just a 2-game sample from Trey Murphy, we're talking about a guy when sharing the floor with Ingram and McCollum with Zion out. And it's not the biggest sample. It's just 85 minutes. And that's because the Pelicans maybe the most injured team in the NBA through like from the start to now, like at least in terms of stars, like Ingram, McCollum, and Zion. I can't even imagine how many games they've even played together, if any.
Probably 10. That's my ballpark estimate right there.
Maybe 10, because we had McCollum out, we've had Ingram out, and we've had Zion out. Like, who knows how many games they've actually played together. But 85-minute sample, a 15% usage rate with Ingram and McCollum on the floor. Like, that's scary for a guy at 6,100. I completely agree the matchup is tremendous, and Houston has been playing better, but that's offensively. They're 29th. They've overthrown Detroit for the second worst defensive rating in basketball now. Kudos to them for accomplishing such a hard feat. And he has great eligibility. Shooting guard, small forward. It's, the dream. You could play him at 5 different positions on DraftKings. Just comes down to 6,100. I think that there are better options for slightly more expensive or slightly less. So I'm not going to be getting too much Trey Murphy. In tournaments, I think it's fine because it is a good matchup, but it's not something that I've currently gotten to in my lineup construction.
James, you did the NBA Playbook today. When we were doing the NBA DFS podcast, we came across a value play of Cedi Osman there for Cleveland. Has anything changed since this morning when it comes to his viability for lineups? Just $3,400 on DraftKings, coming off back-to-back 30-minute game performances here, going up against Washington tonight. Is he a core play for you when it comes to value tonight?
So I don't think he's a core play, but because there's like no way to judge or to guess what Cedi Osman's going to do on a night-night basis in terms of minutes. JB Bickerstaff has been very up and down with Osman's minutes, and like 2-3 games ago in a game against Charlotte, he plays 8. Yes, there's been things that have changed. Jared Allen's out, but it's only Jared Allen out. Since then, 31 and 30 minutes. He's been very good in terms of scoring the basketball, 39 points total in those 2 games, and he's taken 10 threes in each. I think this is a spot that you could play a small lineup against Washington, especially because they're only playing Daniel Gafford 20 minutes. But what if, the hypothetical, and why I don't think he's a core play, but he's definitely in the player pool. What if Washington elects to go big this game, where they force Cleveland's hand without Jared Allen, and they say, we're going to play Gafford and Porzingis and Kuzma, 30 minutes together? Then what? Then
they should be doing that every night, James. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the Skyline lineup works. We saw it with Cleveland last year. It worked for a while. And now with this team, with what they've implored at times, I applaud them putting Kuzma at the 3, Porzingis at the 4, Gafford at the 5. More teams need to follow this model, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't hate the model. Like, it's just Washington's willingness to extend it past 20 minutes, because that Daniel Gafford plays 20 to 22 minutes a game. What if he's playing well and he plays 26 to 28? Then I don't think Cedi Osman is playing much. Then I think they're going back to a Dean Wade or a Lamar Stevens or someone of that ilk in the front court, because they can't play Cedi against Porzingis. Like, that's a nightmare. So I think it all is dependent on what Washington's going to do. Also, like, if Cedi comes in and hits 4 threes in his first stint, like, we may be in for another 30-minute night. So I like him. I don't think he's a core play. And that's also why that correlates to me not getting to Embiid or Anthony Davis, like I mentioned. I don't have that many $3,400 guys in my core plays. Cedi's in play, not a core play for me.
Give James Grande a follow on Twitter at _real_Grande. Follow all of his work on fantasyalarm.com. That DFS NBA podcast, it is awesome. I check it out. I retweet it. Why? Because both John and James are just great dudes and great friends, but they also know their stuff. That's why we don't play around here. And we're not just peppering them. We're not just saying that. Both of them prove it. And in that podcast, they give you the first word. And it's gutsy, guys. You release the podcast when you do, because we deal with injury hell in the NBA. They don't need a reason to rule out half a slate. And I love the other day, James, how shortly after you posted the podcast, you quote tweeted it and said, well, this was before these 3 guys were ruled out, man. It's madness, not just March Madness, but NBA end of season madness here, James.
60% of the time the podcast we do is no good by noon. So, we then have to go ahead and go in the Discord and, make sure everybody's updated with all the news.
And I know what everybody's thinking right now, guys. Like, well, why don't you just do the podcast in the afternoon? Well, we got playbooks to write and stuff like that. That's the real meat and potatoes of this whole thing. James, before we let you go, we're going to be getting with Britt Flynn in just a second to talk about all things NFL free agency. How do you feel about your Giants, though? I mean, tough division, but making some key additions there, retaining Jones. I mean, they've got Barkley in the court, Darren Waller. They got Paris Campbell now. They were able to keep Darius Slayton. I mean, overall, how do you feel about the G-Men offense going into 2023?
Yeah, I mean, the G-Men offense is already probably better than it's ever been. And I know, we still have, draft capital in the first round as well. And I know a receiver is top of the list. I've already laid it out. I think we need to add a number 1, and I think teams that aren't going to pay receivers are the teams we should look to, a la A.J. Brown last year and so on and so forth, when teams just move on from number 1s for no reason. But what we've done so far, I mean, Darren Waller is already the best pass catcher Daniel Jones has probably ever going to throw the ball to. And everyone's going to talk about health. I mean, all the receivers the Giants really have boils down to health. I mean, Sterling Shepard, they re-signed. He's been injured. Darren Waller's been injured the last 2 years. Paris Campbell played his first full season last year. So, there's a lot of answers, but it's always this is football. Anyone could get hurt, but look what happens when Darren Waller plays 2 full seasons. He has 1,100 plus yards in each of those years. He's a mismatch for everybody. We saw Daniel Jones' advancements last year, and this is only going to make the offense more potent, retaining Saquon, bringing back just a plethora of weapons, including Isaiah Hodgins, Slayton. We have 5 receivers. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be returning from injury, obviously. There's 5 receivers that could play. I mean, just the depth that we just didn't have last year to this year is going to be drastic. And the improvements they've made on the offensive line the last 2 years as well. I'm sad they lost Julian Love, the safety. He signed with Seattle today. That's a tough loss. He was one of the captains last year, but overall, it's been a very good offseason. And hey, man, I'm telling you, look out for the Giants in a trade scenario for a receiver, whether it's before draft night or on draft night, kind of like the A.J. Brown thing last year. Teams aren't paying, if they've already paid a Deebo Samuel, there might not be money for Brandon Ayuk. Or if you're going to pay Jamar Chase, there might not be money for T. Higgins. So look out for stuff like that for the Giants. Could be a big move coming, and I'm hoping so.
Give James Grande a follow on Twitter at _real_Grande. He's the king of the underscore, and he joins us every single week here on the Playbook on BSN. James, hope you have a great weekend. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and hope you're getting to hang out a little bit and have a little whiskey. I don't know if that's your thing, but you work a lot. You do a lot, so make sure you enjoy it. Throw a few back tonight, all right?
I won't. But I will enjoy it. I will enjoy it. Minus the alcohol. Haven't really been drinking a lot, but
go have some Chipotle for us all,
Yes,
maybe
Chipotle.
I'll have some. Maybe. I mean, I am very hungry, so maybe 7:01 after Slate Lock. Maybe we'll get into some Chipotle.
Yeah, no queso though. That queso looks like trash. So no queso.
Good. Don't disrespect the queso, Fancy. Don't disrespect the queso.
It sucks. It looks horrible. I never want it.
Looks horrible or tastes horrible, Fancy? We gotta, what?
Touche, James Grande. Don't knock it before you try it. I get it. But they're trying to copy Qdoba, and they don't need to. They're Chipotle. We know they're the GOAT. You and I do that. Kind of like you. Grande, have a great weekend, all right? Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
From one Fantasy Alarm family member to another, let's talk more NFL. We're going to bring in Britt Flynn to do so. Follow all of her work at fantasyalarm.com. A lot of player movement. Let's break it all down here on the Playbook on Bettor Sports Network.
Moose and Keith, weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Bettor Sports Network.
Calvin Ridley yesterday, he applied for reinstatement from the National Football League.
Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence. That is crazy potent on offense.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I mean, Ridley's great.
I think Trevor Lawrence is a guy I want in fantasy this year.
I think you're probably right. I think they're just going to get better and better. First off, Peterson's a wonderful offensive mind.
Yep.
A great head coach, and we've seen that and saw that this year as Jacksonville made it to the postseason. And Trevor Lawrence, anybody that questioned whether or not he could play in the National Football League or just how good he was going to be in the NFL, those questions were answered this past season as in the second half of the year. Statistically speaking, he was a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. That's how good Trevor Lawrence is. You throw Calvin Ridley into the mix, he's going to be great. Yeah, I think Lawrence is a guy you want. I think Ridley's a guy you want. Clearly, Travis Etienne is going to be one of those early, first-round selections as well, being the dual threat running back that he is, not only running, but also catching the ball out of the backfield, Keith, and the ability to take something small and take it to the house. Take a 5-yard dump pass, make a guy miss in the open field, and he's gone. I mean, you saw that with Travis Etienne this past season for Jacksonville. Yeah, sky's the limit. I mean, I think you're going to go from a team in the year span where you wanted no part of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you're looking at fantasy football to where you want as many Jaguars as you possibly can because they're going to be really, really productive. And let's see if they get their tight end back as well. Who had
Evan Ingram was great.
And Evan Ingram, who was great this past season.
Yeah. I mean, if they keep that whole core together, their offense is going to be one of the best in football. Like, I legitimately think that they could be one of the best offenses in football.
Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, then
Ridley,
Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, a good offensive line, and you've got Doug Peterson being creative calling.
Right?
And you look at that division. The Colts are a mess.
Yep.
Titans
look like they're on the downslide.
Titans are on the downslide, right? That window is clearly closed. And then you got the Houston Texans.
Years away from relevancy.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacksonville could win 11 games next year.
Moose and Keith. Weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Bettor Sports Network.
Tua out of the shotgun, back to throw now, looking, throws it. Touchdown Miami, Mike Gesicki. A 11-yard touchdown, Gesicki's 4th of the year.
On 2nd and 20, this time the Patriots only bring 3. Carr down the middle of the field, open Waller. Welcome back, Darren. Touchdown Raiders.
Join the show with one touch of a button. It's Sports Talk 3.0 on Bettor Sports Network.
So much player movement in the National Football League throughout the week. So much to break down, and to help us do just that as we welcome you back to the Playbook on Bettor Sports Network. Once again, programming note, we are going to end a little bit earlier than normal. Don't miss us too much. It's only 10 minutes. Stop crying. It's going to be okay. We'll be back Monday, but we're all cheery right now because joining us to talk about everything that has gone on, and we mean everything in the NFL, it's Britt Flynn from FantasyAlarm.com. Give her a follow on Twitter at Britt_Flynn, Flinn. Britt, welcome back to the Playbook. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Side note, really awesome Whiskey in the Jar intro. Good job, producer Adam, on that on a St. Patrick's Day.
Look at that, AB. That's why we call him the resource, because he knows how to get everything right there. Bernard's just like, wow, what a I don't think anybody since we've started the show has complimented Bernard like that before. And you know what? He's fully deserving. He's a great producer. Big theme being St. Patrick's Day. You caught that, Britt. So that's why AB is as good as he is. Now, Britt, I want to ask you, because you being as good as you are at breaking down football, talking fantasy football, let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit first. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm a little bit sad. I wanted my Jets to get him, but instead he's going to be hanging out in Vegas with Davante Adams. What are your expectations for Jimmy Garoppolo now with the Raiders? Do you view him as a top 12 fantasy football quarterback?
No, for fantasy, I really don't think that landing at the Raiders was a great spot for him, because even if you look at what happened in San Francisco last year, they were ranked 8th in pass blocking efficiency. Now he's going to Vegas, who is ranked 26th in pass blocking efficiency last year. And even behind that awesome offensive line, he ranked in as QB 22 in fantasy points per game. That was behind Jarrett Stidham, for what it's worth. I don't really know if he's going to produce anything that's worthwhile, especially if Vegas doesn't shore up that offensive line. I mean, I know he's got Davante Adams, but he had Debo and Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco and still only ended up as QB 22. So Despite the hype, I really don't think he's somebody that you should target.
Brett, we just heard James Grani talk a little bit about his New York Giants. What are your thoughts there on them re-signing Daniel Jones and then bringing in Darren Waller and Paris Campbell to help sort of rebuild what is that offense?
Oh, is Paris Campbell relevant again? Is that notable? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
He's a name. That's about it.
But all jokes aside, New York just has to do so much more at the receiver position before they're going to produce. I mean, last year, obviously, we know their receiver woes that they had. Daniel Jones only threw 15 touchdowns. And unless they do a lot more in free agency or in the draft to secure a lot more weapons for him, it's probably still going to be a lot of Saquon Barkley. Also, rip to my sweet Daniel Bellinger with the Darren Waller signing. I'm so sad for all my dynasty shares of Daniel Bellinger.
It'll be about 4 games before Waller gets hurt. You'll be okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you have to wait. Just a few weeks, and that's about it right there. Britt, let's talk a little bit about Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster, changing teams right there. So I got to ask you, with them changing squads here, Juju, of course, going to Johnny's Pats, and Jacoby Myers going to the Raiders, you interested in either for fantasy? Because I'm really not. Can you convince me otherwise?
No, I'm on your same page. If the price is right and they fall enough in ADP, maybe, but I'm pretty skeptical about both. So you've got Myers, who's going to Vegas, but you still have Hunter Renfrow. And Myers, throughout the course of his career, has mainly been a slot receiver. And I'm not sure that he can be the outside threat that they need him to be, especially for fantasy purposes. And as far as Juju goes, I have concerns about his health, for one. Then I have concerns about New England's passing volume. Last year, they were 21st in passing attempts. And even in that high-powered Kansas City offense, he still only saw 101 targets, which is like fine, but it's not great, you know? So if the ADP falls, I'll take them, but they're not priority targets for me.
Yeah, I am praying Bill O'Brien comes and just changes this New England offense for the better, because Matt Patricia I think he was holding the clipboard upside down. I don't think he knew what plays he was calling. So
you mean the pencil? The pencil wasn't magic?
Yeah, the pencil wasn't like whispering plays in his ear, you know, like Ratatouille was cooking, you know, it wasn't what was going on there with Matt Patricia. What are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers' situation? You know, the saga between him, the Jets, the Packers, him going on Pat McAfee's show saying he wants to be a Jet. He told everybody he went into the darkness tunnel and he was 90% retired. Like, you know, if you're a Jets fan, like Fensty is, do you even want this guy on your team? Does Aaron Rodgers have anything left to give the NFL? Like, what are your opinions here on this?
I think he has stuff left to give as far as a football player, but like, do you really want the drama? I mean, the whole list of demands, or not really demands, but his wish list. I mean, come on, can you be more of a diva? And then the way the contract that they gave Lazard was just completely out of this world, way too high. But I do think if Aaron Rodgers does go to New York, that it's really going to benefit Garrett Wilson, because he's finally going to have a receiving core behind him. But man, I don't know. And why would you go to the Jets when you've got to face Buffalo, when you've got to face Miami? It just seems a little counterintuitive to me, but you know, maybe he got a vision in the dark.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know what visions he had. It's funny because the way he was describing it, he had a different theme each day, which I think is total BS. I think he was thinking about football every single day, every single minute. It's like all he's got. Let's be honest here. It really is. And it's just caused a whole mess of drama. And him doing that, and Jets fans are rejoicing. And I'm sitting there being like, great, zero leverage. Any kind of power they had over the Packers can ask for the world, and the Jets fans are going to be banging down the door being like, get this guy. And now the Jets are backed into a corner. So essentially that interview, which was, I thought it was a very entertaining interview, it screwed the Jets. And it stinks because that's what Aaron Rodgers did. And we might not see this trade happen for months at this point, Britt. But moving on to running backs here, I mean, we've seen a few of the big names move to different teams. Guys like Montgomery, Miles Sanders as well. I mean, even Rashad Penny, Mr. Glass, because he breaks so easily, the fragilest of the fragile. Which of these running backs that have joined new teams do you feel is the best situation for us fantasy football players?
So honestly, I kind of like Jamal Williams with the Saints. I think that that's a very intriguing spot because you've got Alvin Kamara, who has that uncertainty around his legal situation. You've got an aging and or non-existent running back room to begin with. And then you look at the state of the NFC South, and they look very exploitable. He should still get all the goal line work. And purely from a selfish entertainment standpoint, I really want to see him interact with Jameis Winston. And I want to see those conversations.
Let me ask you a question here. Given the Ezekiel Elliott release, where is your ideal landing spot for Elliott? But when it comes to Tony Pollard now, where does he rank for you in terms of drafting? We saw what he could do as a lone running back last year in Dallas. Does he crack your first round, top 10? Where are you targeting Pollard, and where do we think Zeke lands?
So this really hurts my soul. I've been trying to figure out what to do with my Zeke jersey. It broke my heart. What I'm hoping is that he tests the market, that he's going to come back to Dallas. That's my ideal spot, just to be a backup to Pollard. But as far as Pollard goes, Dallas has full confidence in him. They franchise tagged him, which is $10 million, which is what they were due to pay Zeke anyway. So even with that ankle injury he suffered, that they've got full faith in him. And last year, he was one of the top running backs in points per game.
Yeah.
And with a full season, with no competition, I think he's going to be in the top 4, if not in the running for the actual RB1.
His ADP is going to be very interesting now with Ezekiel Elliott's release moving forward, just because of what we saw him. Could be a 101, type of running back in that offense.
Absolutely.
Talk with Britt Flynn from fantasyalarm.com. Again, give her a follow on Twitter at Britt_Flynn, FLINN. Britt, Michael Thomas, I'm going to put you in a little bit of a situation here. You're in the 8th round. You've got, let's say you're in a 3 wide receiver starting league, 12-team league, and just one flex. You're sitting there. Michael Thomas is on the board. You've already got your 3 big studs right there. Michael Thomas is out there. Michael Thomas, another Mr. Glass. The guy can't stay healthy. The guy dragged teams of mine through the mud because the Saints refused to put him on IR despite him being questionable to out every single week after week 3. He's there in the 8th round. Are you taking him?
I wouldn't take him in the 8th. And I might have a personal vendetta against him because last year I thought the same thing. Like, even if he doesn't produce, if he produces a third of what he did in that crazy wide receiver 1 year, then he's worth it. But he's just been hurt too much. I don't think that the Saints are going to be that team. I just can't take him. Now, if he's there like in the 11th round, I would consider it. But I can't take him in the 8th. That's still too spicy for my taste.
Another running back situation we got going on down in Miami. They have both Mostert and Wilson back in their roster here. How are you approaching that running backfield? Do you have any particular target or one over the other?
Well, there's 0 running back heroes. So depending on who falls to you, if you're a 0 RB truther, like you love both of them, right? But at this point, I'm kind of keeping an eye on the movement of Kareem Hunt, because he was posted in Tyreek Hill's Instagram.
Okay.
And he's still not been signed. And, they have history. They played together in Kansas City. So I'm a little intrigued and kind of waiting to see if Kareem Hunt goes to Miami. If he doesn't, and then it's still a rotation between Wilson and Mostert, I'll be more interested in them. But I really think they're going to sign somebody who's going to take the majority of the work.
Britt Flynn, again, fantasyalarm.com, does a lot of great fantasy football work there. And Britt, by the way, was talking to us about Patrick Mahomes and everything all throughout the last few years. But Britt, I'll say this. One of the key things you did say to me, and I took this advice to heart, was that if he was going to continue to drop to that 6th round area, why not? Why the hell not at that point? Because, what about the rest of the quarterbacks? They'll fall. No, if Patrick Mahomes is dropping a couple of rounds like he did, and because of that, I thought of that. I remembered your interview with us, and I ended up drafting him, and I was happy as hell I did there. So, again, Britt, you pulled that inside off. You motivated me because I was not going after Patrick Mahomes. I had never had Patrick Mahomes before, never on my target. I was someone that always waited. I used to be the guy that'd be like, I'm going to draft Matt Ryan in the 8th, 9th round there when he was on the Falcons. I was that guy. It worked for a little bit. Drew Brees when he was going late. It worked for a little bit. Brady worked for a little bit. But after having the conversations we had, you go after that quarterback. If that quarterback's good and you're sitting there in that 5th, 6th round, where Joe Burrow was going, Hurts right around there, you go for that quarterback. So, Britt, you inspired me, and I'm not just saying that because I would have never taken Patrick Mahomes. Even my friends are like, dude, are you feeling all right? You have the flu? You took Mahomes. Well, when the value supersedes all and Mahomes and all of his talent and all that he could do drops to that round, you take him. That's just what you do. Who cares what the ADP charts are saying? Who cares about any of that? And that's one of the things you provide the family on Fantasy Alarm. So thank you again for stopping by.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure. And good luck. I hope Aaron Rodgers doesn't ruin the Jets for you.
Oh, man. He already has. Don't worry. He already has. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, 63% of his passes that he completed last year? What would he do at this point? It's the same thing with Brett Favre. It was this exact same thing. Wow, Brett Favre, he's going to win you a Super Bowl. What happened? His old ass got hurt, and essentially, I don't want to say he hit the injury, but he played hurt, and the Jets were 8-3. In 2008, they didn't make the playoffs. So same old Jets, Britt. That's what happens. You root for the Cowboys, so you do it right. John roots for the Patriots. He does it right. I root for the Jets and get nothing. So that's just the way it goes. But, Britt, again, happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope you have a great weekend. Don't know what you got on the agenda, but with us working here, throw a few back there. I don't know if whiskey's your thing, but if it is, have a little Jameson for me, all right?
Well, my last name is Flynn, so I'm literally Irish, so it's going to happen.
I don't judge, Britt, okay? I don't judge at all. But, Britt, thank you so much again for stopping by.
Bye, Britt.
Right. Thanks, y'all.
Yep. John, again, man, it's deja vu all over again. It really is. It was the same thing with Brett Favre. Now Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers really only wants to do this, it seems like, in play still because the Packers want to move on. Mm-hmm. And to me, I don't know how that's going to end up with the Jets. What if another team all of a sudden starts pursuing him? Then the Jets have shot themselves in the foot. So I didn't really – the whole thing that went on there, I just wish the trade happened or a trade happened before he went on Pat McAfee. But that's how it is, man. These guys go on platforms now. They say things, and all of a sudden the entire world is lit on fire. What else was there to talk about? There was about 500,000 people tuned into that interview. Yeah. I was one of them.
Yeah. Listen, he's a draw. McAfee knows what he's doing. Aaron Rodgers knows what he's doing. So, yeah, they're a marketing team together. He's gone on there and announced some things before. We talked a lot about stuff. So it makes a lot of sense that he would sort of give that information to that forum. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers is the guy that likes to control his own story and control his own narrative. So don't let Adam Schefter be the one to beat you to the punch. Just do it yourself. And that's what Aaron Rodgers likes to have.
The text was funny, though. Yeah. Lose my number. Anybody that's been a radio producer or a TV producer, the phrase lose my number, you get used to that phrase a lot. People are like, oh, can you believe you said that? I'm sitting there being like, yeah, it's happened to me about 60,000 times in my day. Like I said, programming note, we're going to be ending here a few minutes early. Why? Because it's March Madness on Bettorcast tonight starting at 6:50 Eastern Time. Watch live NCAA tournament first round action and compete in our real-time Q&A contest on the Bettor Sports Network app. Watch, play, and win prizes by answering predictive questions about the games while having fun chatting with our community in real time. Join us for Bettorcast on the Bettor Sports Network app. Tonight, starting at 6:50 Eastern, you can win a $100 gift card to the BettorSports.com collectible shop to purchase authentic hand-signed items from your favorite athletes. Campus to Canton will air on BettorSports.com and on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch at Bettor Network. Questions are coming at you fast. What you're going to do is you're going to go in the app, you're going to see the logos of teams, and you're going to see the chat. You can have fun chatting, but those questions are coming fast and furiously, and you got to answer them because the time definitely is indicative of when these questions and what questions pop up. A lot of props, a lot of live betting props. That's why we talk about it as Sports Talk 3.0. John, let me ask you this, man. The prop that I just keep thinking about. I know I gave the Beverly over 4.5 rebounds. What do you think of Anthony Davis over 27.5 points? I just feel like I got to do something with him. Yeah. I thought about the points, rebounds. It's over 40. It scared me off. It's the Mavs. I know the pace will be slowed down a bit, but I still think he'll be fine going over.
I'm not really worried about the is it 40.5? Is that what it's set at?
I saw it at 40.5. It could be up to 41.5 though.
I don't mind that. Listen, 30-20. I mean, he's been giving you that close to it, right? Like 30-17. He's been right there. I think he goes over the points like you just said. I think taking over his rebounds makes a lot of sense as well. I'm trying to see what his double-double prop is tonight as well, just because why not, right? I mean, his rebounds is only -120 at 13.5. Like nobody's playing center for Dallas. It's
Right.
Dwight Powell, it's Christian Wood. So
Can you believe that we've gone all this time and Dwight Powell is still a center on this team? What does he do? He doesn't do anything.
They like his rotational defense. Somebody, what was it? There was an article that somebody wrote out. Maybe it might have even been Luka gave an interview being like, you don't realize how good Dwight Powell is because you're only looking at the box score. And it's like, he sets crisp screens, and it's like, cool, right? Like, great. Glad that he's a really good screener for you, I guess. But listen, there are guys in the NBA that are out there, and you wonder why they play all those minutes. Andre Robertson was a guy like that, right?
Yes.
The old guy for the Thunder.
Good pull.
He played for a bunch of different teams, right? But like, he was on the floor. He would have like zeros. Tony Snell, Captain Zero, right? But he would be on an NBA team. You'd get minutes because he could like defend, and I was like, that's all he could do. So I don't know.
Dorian Finney-Smith too. I mean, yes, he's asked to shoot threes at times, and he's used as a bailout option, but he's in there for defense. That's when he's in there, and that's why Dallas losing him, I thought, was very crucial. I know that they wanted to get Kyrie and everything, but Dorian Finney-Smith is a piece that a contending team should beg to have because of his great defense.
Important. 3-and-D guys are very important in the NBA. So Dorian Finney-Smith can certainly kind of fill out that one.
Yeah, absolutely there, man. It definitely, when looking at, again, by the way, you and I playing each other in my home league in the quarterfinals in the fantasy basketball playoffs.
I'm facing you. That's who that is?
That is who, yes. We're in a very tight battle.
That's who I'm facing right now?
Yeah, you're going to probably beat me. I haven't had Luka all week. You are going to beat me. Yeah. You are. I know that you're seeing the moves that I'm making. I can't make, you know what? I can't really make anymore. I'm kind of done at this point here.
Listen, the only thing that could beat me at this point is my guy's not playing. Fortunately, I'm getting Damian Lillard and potentially Kyrie Irving back here. Irving just missed the last 3 or 4 games. I'm hoping he suits up. Injuries have just been the downfall of my team. These guys just are constantly out of the lineup, but currently projected to beat you, but it's close. It's only 100 points, Fency. So
it is. But if I had Luka playing, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. I don't feel comfortable at all. I actually am pretty down about that because Luka Doncic's value in a points league, it's second to none.
Yeah.
And to not have him in my playoffs pisses me off. It's frustrating. And it's against
me having Kyrie Irving and you not having Luka playing is actually beneficial to me because Kyrie's stats go up. When Luka
1,000%. 1,000%. And I did grab Hardy at one point, just in case there. I could tell you were waiting because now with what Yahoo does is I don't know if you could turn this setting off or not, but anytime in our league someone makes a move, an ad, everybody gets notified about that, which I kind of don't like because I don't want you who's favored to see me making moves because it probably brings awareness. Oh, I should make a move too.
I didn't even know that happens. I don't think I get those emails. So,
oh, wow. Oh, you don't get notifications sent to your phone about it?
No.
Wow. Okay, then. Wow, I just gave away that secret then. Seriously, man. Oh, I wish I had Luka.
I wouldn't want that, though. I would not want to know when people are making moves. That would annoy the hell out of me. My phone blowing up like that.
Yeah, well, now you know why my battery drains so quickly, John.
I get one of those charging phones, charging cases,
Dude, those are awesome.
Yeah.
You put it right in the case and boom. But then you have to remember to charge.
I just got a new iPhone yesterday, Fancy. I don't know if you can see it anymore, but
nice and red. I see.
I finally upgraded, from the way old iPhone SE to the iPhone 14. So we're entering the new level of technology over here. So
no flip phone for you.
No, I wish.
I miss those, man. I
don't need this phone being any bigger than it was before, but yet they keep making the phones bigger. And I'm paying mostly for a camera I'll never use. Like, this is like the best camera in the world makes. I don't take photos, but, here we are.
Yeah, well, here we are here. UConn up by 20 points, outscoring Iona in the second half thus far, 46-24. Feeling a little bit better about that. Bettorcast coming up next. Campus to Canton on bettorsports.com as well. For John and Peppa, thank you for filling in for the Roan Man, that lazy bum. I'm Justin Fensterman. We thank our producers, Adam Bernard and Jared Moore. Good luck to everyone. Be safe. Happy St. Patty's Day. Let's win.